Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Oh man, what a great weekend this past weekend was for movies. There was obviously one movie to rule them all. 100 million plus open for Toy Story 4. Brilliant movie, wonderful addition to the Toy Story saga. And if you want to see my non-spoiler review, you can check it out right there. A couple other movies that came out, but the one that was in the 2 slot this weekend was one that I was very, very intrigued at seeing. And when it was announced that Mark Hamill would be involved, I was very, very excited. So the question going into this movie that we all had is, would this character still be our friend till the end? Why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Child's Play. That's right, man. We have a 2019 rebooted Child's Play movie on our hands, and I gotta say, I dug it. There are a couple spotty patches throughout the movie. Things that are a little bit predictable. A little bit kind of more generic and traditional to like the standard horror film, and there are maybe a couple stumbling paces. But for the most part, those are minor. And the wins in this movie, I think, are much bigger. And this is an enjoyable kickback, have a fun slasher flick horror film. And it's smart, too. There are things that they do in this movie that I think are really, really intriguing. I think they're really interesting to dive into. I think they could dive into them more in a sequel. And it fits very much for today's audience. If you were somehow unfamiliar with Chucky and the Child's Play movies, this is a reboot of the 1988 classic. And I say classic, man, because the minute Chucky showed up, he just pushed his way right into that rogues gallery of classic horror villains. Jason and Michael Myers and Freddy and Pinhead. Chucky, boom, puts himself right there right away. So to get a movie that's very, very different from that, I think could be off-putting for certain hardcore fans. But if you're cool with taking something you know and love and seeing it adapted into something new that works really, really well, you should be able to enjoy this movie as much as I did. Now, this is non-spoiler, so I won't tell you exactly what the specific things are that they changed, but I will point out that they changed the origin of Chucky. If you are unfamiliar, the 1988 version, there's a serial killer right at the beginning of the movie, Charles Lee Ray, who's on the run. He gets gunned down in a toy shop and uses a voodoo spell to cast his spirit into the doll, thus the name Chucky. And the doll brand name also different. It was a Good Guys doll. Here it is a Buddy doll. And that's fine. You can tweak that. I don't care about that. But the way in which Chucky becomes Chucky is very, very different. And I think, like I said, it works more into the story that it has. And I think it'll play for audiences now better than saying that a serial killer used a voodoo spell to put his spirit into the doll. So it's more of a technological twist as to why Chucky goes bad. But at the same time, other than just working in an updated version of the story, it actually makes you empathize with Chucky a little bit. Like, you can be like, oh, I see what he's trying to do. It's just not going the way it's supposed to go because of how he's been set up. So I honestly liked the tweak. And when you throw in what Mark Hamill is doing with voice work, which, by the way, is just stupendous. Mark Hamill's an icon. He was an icon the minute he stepped on the scene in Star Wars. But you could argue that he's an even bigger icon when it comes to voice acting and playing these classic, iconic villains. I mean, forever, he will always be my true Joker. So to see him take on Chucky, that was what got me excited. And the things he does, man, his voice are so subtle because he's kind of a robotic AI toy. The way he delivers his voice, it's very sweet in tone, like, hi, I'm Chucky. Like, there's, oh man, and it makes your skin crawl. It's the type of voice work that just gets under the first layer of your skin and then just kind of crawls all over you. And when you add in the other major difference in this movie, which is the look of the doll itself, I think you get something that's really creepy pretty much every time it's on screen. Now, as I mentioned, there were a lot of people that were upset when we saw that first reveal of Chucky. And I was a little thrown off too. I was like, oh, that's different. But I think it really works. And being that you've changed all these other things, to give the doll a unique look that is very distinctive to this movie, I thought was a good idea. And even though he does drastically look different, the Chucky doll never looked realistic. It always looked weird. And as Chucky went on in evolution in general in the original series, he got stranger and stranger looking to begin with. And there are moments in this movie where he does have some of those classic Chucky faces. There's a sequence where he's making all these facial maneuvers. And you're like, oh my gosh. And some of his faces in the movie make you go, that is Chucky. And the fact that Mark Hamill's voice work is so good and makes you buy into that with what you're seeing on screen. By the end of the movie, you're not even thinking about the way he looks. And he looks and feels like Chucky the whole movie. So I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was an interesting take on the look of him, but I thought it was important to kind of change it, give it its own style, its own sense. And for me, this doll way creepier than the original doll just on looks alone. So all that stuff certainly amped up the horror elements. And there are some really nice pop scares in the movie. You do get a few of those classic kind of jump scares. But I love the kills in this movie, man. Chucky is really creative. And like I said, there's an empathetic part of what he's doing where you're like, I understand where he's coming from. And I'm enjoying watching it even more because I'm like, yeah, I can't be mad at Chucky for doing that or that. So like those takes on him are great. And then toward the end of the movie, as we're ramping up for the finale, we end up getting into the toy store right around the release of this Buddy 2. The Buddy company is releasing a new doll, a new version with like 4 different looks. You can get them in, black kid, a blonde kid, a bear, a bunch of different looks to the Chucky doll. And there's a sequence that takes place in the toy store as we're like the grand opening for Buddy 2. And the things they do in that sequence, so entertaining, so much fun. And it's the stuff in the movie where you go, I'm glad they're taking this technological, almost Black Mirror approach to Chucky, because it allows him to play with even more and being interconnected to an app device and all the technological advances that a doll like this would have today really help some of these sequences, like the toy store. And you just get this really, really fun horror slasher flick action. And by the end of the movie, you're just like, yeah, I'm here for this. I am in. And like I said, Mark Hamill's voice just crushes the whole movie. And then when you add in everybody else, it's a lot of familiar faces and a bunch of new faces. And it starts right out the gate with Andy. Andy is sort of a new face. Gabriel, not physically, Gabriel Bateman, who plays him, but it's a new face in the sense that he's older. Gabriel Bateman, I think, is 13. So having a early teenage kid in the movie, so much better than having an 8-year-old. I went back and rewatched the original Child's Play, and as much as I love that movie, having a kid that's not 8, huge improvement. You're able to do more. The intelligence level of Andy is even higher. So the way it all plays, it feels a lot better than the original in that sense. And I really enjoyed Gabriel Bateman's performance. The situation, his family situation, makes a lot of sense for the way he is. They've moved recently, I believe. So, he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's kind of struggling. One of the reasons why that doll becomes so important. And I just thought he did a really good job. And like I said, having an older Andy, I thought worked much better. Aubrey Plaza, who plays Andy's mom, Karen. Wow, man, I was really, really impressed with Aubrey Plaza because I have grown up watching Aubrey Plaza kind of play the slutty bimbo in most movies that she's in. So when you hear her going to play a mom, which is a drastic change in character, I was like, well, this could be interesting. And I thought she did a really good job. Like, I feel like she is a mom and one of those younger moms and a younger single mom and all the things that they have her doing in the movie. Her motivations, the way she gets the doll, albeit different than the original, very similar. So, like, that's a nice nod. And her chemistry and relationship with Gabriel in the movie is just really, really good. And you get this real legit feeling of a mother-son team-up. So I really enjoyed Aubrey Plaza. Brian Tyree Henry comes on this time as Detective Mike Norris. I love the way he's utilized here, again, slightly differently, but I like the relationship he's able to build with Andy and Karen. I like the story arc that his police officer goes on. And his mother lives on Andy's floor, Doreen, played by Carlise Burke, who's absolutely wonderful. So there's reasons for Brian Tyree Henry to pop into the movie frequently other than being a police officer. And all the things they do with his character, man, whether it be the crime scenes that he shows up to, or the relationship in the apartment that he has with Andy and his mom, Doreen, and Andy's mom, Karen. Brian Tyree Henry just gives you really nice stuff. And as does Carlise Burke. I love her as Doreen. There is a sequence that takes place in her apartment. Andy's trying to get rid of something, but it's wrapped. So they're like, oh, he smells like, oh, is that a present? Let's open it. He's like, oh, it's for Doreen. And then he has to kind of come up with a way to get Doreen not to open it at that moment and then get into Doreen's later to try to get it out. And that whole bit is really, really funny. And again, the relationship between Andy and Detective Norris, I just think works a lot in this movie. And I like that they have a connection the whole film. And then, there are a couple other teenagers that are in the building. Ty Consiglio, Beatrice Kitsos, who play Pug and Fallon. Thoroughly enjoy both of them. There's a bunch of other kids, too, that are in the apartment building. But those two specifically hang out with Andy for a good chunk of the movie. And they're nice side character elements. They get you some laughs. And what they do with Andy early in the movie really sets up how Chucky starts to function and behave and do the things that Chucky does. And that stuff I thought was very, very important because of the drastic change to his origin. You needed to make it very, very clear on why he would all of a sudden start killing. And the stuff that they do with the three kids, I think, works really well. So, like I said, you kind of end up with this like Black Mirror feeling version of Child's Play that I think is very, very timely, works very well now, still holds true to the core of what Child's Play is about, and Chucky is a slam dunk, man. Mark Hamill, all you had to say was Mark Hamill, Chucky, and you knew you were going to get a win. And the fact that the look works by the end of the movie, I think, is very important. And because of the way he looks and the technological advances of this doll, there's a tweak to his eyes. Now, they are still the crystal bright blue that you will remember Chucky having. But when he starts to go rogue, they kind of change color and light up red. I loved that. There's some really good visuals in this movie. And the CGI and animation when Chucky's like moving real fast works pretty well. But overall, I just thought this was a really nice updated version to a story we all know and very familiar with. And granted, they took massive changes to the character. It still functions and feels like a Child's Play movie. That's all you can ask for when you're doing these reboots. So for me, big fan of this version of Child's Play. Iconic level voice acting from Mark Hamill. Great death sequences and murders. And a really, really strong cast that you just enjoy watching on screen. Who couldn't be happy about this? So for the Seaman, A+. It was a property I wasn't sure you could pull off until you said Mark Hamill. And even if it wasn't Mark Hamill, I still think this would work. So I'm a fan of Child's Play. Make sure you go check it out if you haven't. If you have, I want to know what you're thinking, man. Hit those comments down below. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. Did you think this worked as a reboot? Is this something you can get into? Are you excited if they do any kind of sequels? Another thing to point out there, the end will probably have you scratching your head going, wait, what? Think about it. Think about what you watched. Think about how Chucky functions as a doll and how he's connected to apps and all those different things. You'll find the breadcrumb trail that'll lead you to how you would get to a sequel. And I think it actually plays really, really well. And it can play into what Chucky does in that toy store scene, I think, even more. I'd be very interested to see if they do a sequel at some point and how they fill in all those gaps that we kind of get at the end of the movie. So even if that threw you off, man, let me know what you were thinking. Did that throw you off? Where you were like, yeah, okay, I understand what's going on. Would you be in for a sequel? Did you love Mark Hamill? Did you like the deaths? Did you like the new characters and the twist to those characters? Everything you're thinking about the movie, leave that down below. If you haven't seen it, as the old Seaman enticed you, I hope I have, man. Because like I said, as a fan of the original, this one does a really nice job as far as a reboot goes. So leave all your comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out all the time, go hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. So for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down, I am your buddy till the end. The Seaman signing off. Peace. Well, you guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.